Recording now. Boom. It's going. We are live.
Welcome to the Too Much to Say podcast.
Well, we got too much to say, so we had to put it in a podcast.
It's with the podcast with the dumbest title, but a lot of good stuff. So, want to start off just talk about some random thoughts about some random things this week. My first take after listening to The Greatest Show far, far, far too much is that Hugh Jackman needs to stop talking. Or stop singing, sorry.
The Greatest Showman, yeah. Which I have not seen, but I have seen Les Miserables, and that was enough for me. So.
He does. There's some. He sings a little better sometimes, but when he tries to go full voice, And
it's a shame because I actually feel like Hugh Jackman's a good singer, like a legitimately good singer, and not that I've seen him on Broadway, but I've seen clips and he sounds great. But when he tried to become a tenor, that's where everything went bad.
Yeah. Have you listened to The Greatest Showman?
I've heard enough. Like there's some good stuff on it. But the one that got nominated for the Oscars, This Is Me. No offense to anybody who maybe relates to it or feels inspired by it, but it's just that for me. It's inspiration porn. It's just,
oh yeah.
It's calculated inspiration porn with no honesty, no other goal in mind but to kind of make everybody kind of pat themselves on the back. So that's how I feel about that one.
Yeah, I mean, I like her. I like her voice. Yeah. But yeah, from a content perspective,
right? I'm gonna just pull up the lyrics really quick. Let's just take a gander. Yep. All right. Look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching on to the beat I drum. And I'm not scared to be seen. I make no apologies. This is me. And then the millennial whoop. Oh, 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 and then huge drums in the background. Like I said, it's all just, yeah, it's so calculated.
But if I'm not mistaken, that music's done by the same people who did
Dear Evan Hansen. And La La Land. Well, they did the lyrics to La La Land.
Or they just did the lyrics.
Which are decent lyrics, right? And then Dear Evan Hansen, of course, is phenomenal. So
yeah, well, it feels a lot more honest.
Oh yeah. And there's some good stuff in Greatest Showman too, but that particular song, I was just surprised that it got an Oscar nom. Yeah, not Pasek and Paul's top work.
No, but I mean, enjoyable. Some of it's enjoyable. I like I said, I get. As was the original point, I would like Hugh Jackman to stop singing.
Yeah.
Let other actors who are better singers. It's like Lin-Manuel Miranda. He knows he can't sing, and he's very open about it.
Yeah.
For instance, for Moana, he didn't want to sing. They ended up using his takes for some of those songs.
Yeah.
But they're talking about, were you nervous for recording? He's like, no, I didn't think anybody was going to hear it.
That's awesome.
Know your wheelhouse. You are a great Wolverine.
Know your limits.
Jackman. You're a great Wolverine. Let's stick with that. You can do other stuff, acting, but no more singing, please.
No more singing. So Hugh Jackman, if you're listening to this, talking to you.
But we love you.
Yeah.
Nonetheless.
Of course.
Much love. Just no more singing, please.
Right.
And to move on to a less jovial topic, for this past week I just want to give a shout out and give some props to the Parkland teens. I would have mentioned this earlier if we had done a podcast earlier, but the way they've handled it, they're mad props. People always want to hate on the millennial generation and everybody coming up, but I feel like they stepped up, into a really bad situation that in no way their fault, and I don't know, man. They came out firing against people who didn't want to do anything about it, and I feel like they've been a great example, basically to everybody.
Yeah, it takes a lot of courage. Yeah, have the national spotlight on them like that, and knowing also that it's such a hot button issue that's going to be, they're gonna stoke a fire. Yeah,
Well,
proud of them for doing that.
they immediately got flack. People
Oh, yeah.
calling them fake. People saying that they're crisis actors, and they're just like, nah, I don't care.
Yeah, I think that's a shame. It's one thing to disagree with what their platform is. I'm fine with that. If people think that they're maybe misguided in what they are asking for in terms of change, I say, okay, well, there's different sides to that argument. But where I draw the line is like, when people try to dismiss them on the basis of, well, they're going about it the wrong way, which is the one you always hear, right? Anytime there's a protest somebody doesn't like the premise of, they're going about it the wrong way. I don't mind what they're doing, they're just going about it the wrong way. And then
it's the most bullshit excuse.
So there's that one, and just trying to dismiss them on the basis of they're young and naive and don't know what they're doing. And it's like, I mean, you weren't at the school when it got shot up, so it's like,
yeah, they're young and naive. They've never experienced. They don't have any life experience, especially not getting shot at. Oh wait, that's you, who's never been shot at. I mean, it's just actually a pretty decent segue into the topic that we wanted to cover today. Because I the whole trying to discredit them for who they are based on their age or based on basically superfluous details.
Even if your reasons for disagreeing with them are valid reasons, right? Because that's a different story than quote disagreeing with them on the premise of their age or ascribing some kind of ulterior motive to what they're doing,
Well, it's just discrediting someone. Like you said, there's a difference between like disagreeing and discrediting. Like if you disagree with somebody, I mean, not to touch on like for instance, flat Earth. Like it's one thing to say that it's a flat Earth, but which I mean is asinine. But like you can't just be like, hey, it's a flat Earth. You have to have like research and documentation. It's like evolution. Like, well, scientists have come together for the theory of evolution. You say, well, I don't believe in evolution. You were never given that opportunity. No one ever offered you whether or not you believe it. You're allowed to disagree with it and then put forth like, hey, these are the reasons, this is the research. I don't see that evolution is real because of this, and this. But you're not allowed to say, oh, well, I don't believe in it. It's the same thing with with the Parkland teens. You can't just be like, well, they're young. That has nothing to do with their opinion at all. Like you're just distracting. You're just waving over here from the real issue, which is right here. Mm-hmm. Like
it's just a logical fallacy, like so many others, right? It's looking at the person rather than the argument being made by the person. And you might have all kinds of beef with the person behind the argument, but that doesn't necessarily mean the argument is invalid.
Right. I mean, there are a lot of horrible people who have made a lot of good points. I mean, it's at that point where you have to separate the person from the idea.
And let's go as far as to accept the assumption that they are going about it the wrong way. That their premise is fine, but they're going about it the wrong way. But that's another logical fallacy. It's the fallacy, which is assuming that just because the way a message is delivered or the manner in which the argument is given invalidates the premise behind the argument. But that's not necessarily true. You could have somebody with a very valid argument, but they deliver it full of grammatical errors and spelling errors, and it's poorly handled, poorly delivered. But that doesn't mean their idea is necessarily wrong.
What? Just like you touched on earlier, what is the okay way to protest?
However you please. I feel like peacefully, right?
What? Yeah, but if it's a peaceful, like the NFL, like the players going on the field and kneeling during the national anthem,
right?
Why was that morally reprehensible?
Uh, I it's tough. People feel very strongly, as they should, about patriotism and about the flag and about respecting the flag. And I think it came from a disagreement or a misunderstanding about what respecting the flag actually means. And to me, in my view, peacefully kneeling during the national anthem at a sports game is not a way to disrespect the flag, any more than, say, wearing flag boxers or eating a burger and hot dog off of flag plates. You know, it's
I would argue that the
that the former is
the
even more respectful than the
yeah,
latter.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
actually, what the funny thing is, I think if you break down what they did was actually it was the opposite of disrespectful. It was respectful. It was saying, "Hey, I see injustice with this country." It's not like they sat there with like their middle fingers in the air during the national anthem. Like kneeling is, I mean, do Christians not kneel? Do Muslims not kneel when they pray to their gods? Like,
Yeah, it's an inherently it's a posture of humility, a posture
mm-hmm.
of reverence.
it,
And I
yeah,
think and this is, to me, this is a valid argument. That I think the counter argument from a lot of people was that it wasn't even necessarily what they were doing. It's the fact that they were distracting from the real. What they would say is that it was distracting from the real problem at hand. So if they were protesting police violence, then kneeling at the Pledge of Allegiance, that might be okay, but it doesn't. Or national anthem, sorry, kneeling during the national anthem might be okay, but it doesn't necessarily correlate to the problem that they're trying to address. And I say, okay, that I can appreciate that viewpoint. I don't know that for me that means that I hate what they're doing or that I'm mad about what they're doing. Maybe it's not the most effective form of protest they could have done, but I also don't see why we should vilify people for not protesting best. You know?
yeah, I
So
agree.
even if there may have been a more efficacious way to protest, doesn't really make it bad to protest.
I mean, it was clearly effective. I mean, everyone got the message. Like that the whole point of protesting is to relay a message to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly they got your attention, which was their goal.
Right.
The goal was to get your attention. They got your attention. That was a successful protest.
Right.
I mean, you guys reacted negatively, but I don't think that, or not you guys, people reacted negatively, but I don't think that is indicative of a failure on their part. I think it's more of a failure on the people who reacted negatively. I mean,
And that's how I see it too. I mean, I think it says more about the people that watched it happen than about the people that did it.
yeah.
You know.
Well, let's transition. This is all part of the today's topic of the political climate, which feels like dominates. I don't know, just dominates the culture. I mean, I don't remember. I mean, given I was younger back 15, 20 years ago, but I just don't remember politics taking such a center stage. I mean, and even when I mean, I guess I'm 31 now. Even 10 years ago, like I do remember, Bush and Kerry and all that, but I feel like it's just become it's just so important now. Like these what's being thrown into question on a day-to-day basis is so important. And just maybe I'm just getting older and like I, I, I just care more about it than I did back then. But I mean, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think?
Yeah. No. I think the proliferation of social media has a lot to do with that. It's a lot easier to communicate your political ideas off the cuff and spontaneously with your peers than it ever has been before. Whereas before you would have to do it, one-on-one or maybe in an email or just listening to the news. Now you can hop on Facebook or even on your phone, and just like say whatever you want to say or read up about any of the latest happenings in the political world. So I think that has a lot to do with it. I think I don't necessarily know that we are that more interesting things are happening today than have happened in the past. I think we're just more plugged in, and because of that ability to plug in, it also increases, I think, some of that polarization that we see between both sides. Right. It's easier to hop on social media and put yourself in an echo chamber, and thus kind of increase your bias, and say that towards, people that are liberal minded or conservative.
Sure.
It's easier for everyone to kind of lean towards their biases.
Do you think that social media? Okay. Yeah, I'll ask you and then I'll answer. So, do you think social media's effect on politics and America and the world in general has been positive or negative overall?
Like net positive or net negative?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. It's hard to say, right? Because I think my gut reaction, without any data in front of me, I would say was maybe net negative. Because I don't see social media actually being a legitimate platform for change most of the time. I see it as just a platform for discussions that don't go anywhere. I think, meanwhile, we're all battling it out on Facebook, and I think there's actual people in actual positions of leadership and power making real changes, and we're all just sitting here commentating on it.
I think it depends on the platform. I definitely feel like Facebook is a net negative. Like,
yeah.
I don't feel like Facebook really contributes to the world.
No.
I mean, it's kind of a messenger service for me. That's about the only way I use it. But as for for politics, but I feel like things like Reddit, where it's a little bit. I don't know. It just feels like a better. It's less personal. So I'm not trying to defend myself against my friends. I'm just talking to people on the internet,
mm-hmm.
and we're willing to just open conversation. I feel like that. I feel like that's a net positive. Like this open forum, nobody has names attached to them. I mean, sure, there are trolls and there are the Russian bots and all that, but I feel like, maybe even now we're at net neutral, but I think over time, I definitely think it will come out to a net positive. I think that just the more informed everybody is, the better. And I feel like we need to work on fake news and all that, but I think we'll get there eventually. I think it's just us trying to rein it in.
Yeah. See, I'm not a big Redditor, so I can't speak a lot to that. So I'm curious, do you feel like Reddit kind of, do you feel like people get into the same problem they get into on Facebook on Reddit, where they kind of put themselves into an echo chamber and they kind of just double down on their own beliefs? Or do you feel like it's really an open discussion where people are refining their views?
I mean, everything out there is a tool, and you choose how to use it, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are definitely echo chambers on Reddit, no doubt. The Donald subreddit is an echo chamber. I mean, they've intentionally made it an echo chamber. Late stage capitalism, which is a more liberal, is also an echo chamber. They've intentionally made it an echo chamber. Their late stage capitalism is actually actually very honest up front. They say, hey, this is not a place to discuss this. This is only pro, basically socialist views. And if you do anything beyond that, then we're going to block you. But outside of the intentional echo chambers, which I mean, people getting together and talking about stuff, like-minded people getting talked about, there is some good in that. I mean, I don't want to just it can become bad, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It can become really true echo chambers are bad, but like you and I talking about it, for instance, like we agree on a lot of things. But I feel like we're also trying to attack things critically. So I don't mind if you question me or I question you. I don't feel like that's a bad thing. Echo chambers where the hive mind, if there's one way to view about this, and if you don't, everyone's going to shout you down. That's obviously bad. But to the point, on Reddit, I feel like there is some honest discussion, or at least there are honest viewpoints put out there, and I like to read it and critically evaluate their opinions. I don't know if that's how everybody else uses it, but that's how I like to use it. I like to look at the different things and agree and disagree, and I may comment or may not. I'm more of a lurker than a commenter.
Part of that 99% on the internet.
Yeah. Well, hey man, we're on a podcast now,
we're making a podcast now, so we're out of that 99%. We are now into the 1% of. Are we contributors or creators? I guess we're. This is creation. We're creators. Less than 1%, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're the elite of the internet. So you should listen to us. So I think if I were to rank them, I'd probably put Reddit pretty near the top. I mean, in terms of social media platforms, I think Reddit's pretty high up there. Maybe second. I don't know, where's Twitter fall with Facebook? I'm not a big Twitterer either.
No, I don't tweet.
But I think Twitter can be a little bit more critical. I actually kind of like Twitter because it tends to be kind of this deconstructionist platform where people like are very there's a lot of cynicism there, a lot of like critiquing of thoughts, and you have to be you can only be kind of short and acerbic with them because it's only 140 characters, so you kind of got to get right to the point. So I think Twitter's kind of probably up there. Facebook, YouTube is. In terms of the comments, I almost said the garbage section. It's
garbage section.
The garbage section is full of comments and vice versa.
Yeah.
And then who knows below that?
No, I'm on board. I'm on board with what? Yeah, 4chan.
Yeah.
No, I'm on board. I think Twitter has a similar diode as Reddit, whereas like it's again. I don't know, you just like, I don't even know how to describe it. You just like broadcast your opinion or broadcast this article, and it's just out there for everyone to consume. Like it just feels like more honest, I guess. It's not me going to Fox News and getting or CNN or Fox 4 or whatever. I'm getting opinions from everybody, and I choose and evaluate them on my own, I guess. And that's what I want.
And Twitter kind of takes an organic approach to the news feed too. Like certain things kind of go viral in tweets, and so it's interesting how just kind of organic interaction with the platform kind of creates the most popular content. Whereas Facebook is a little bit more tailored towards the individual experience, what you want in your own news feed.
And they don't know how to protect their data, so that's cool.
And there's that. Yeah. So everybody
let's
a mass exodus of Facebook is what I think should happen. And not even just because of the data. I've been considering getting off of Facebook for a while.
I mean, the only thing like I said, I use Facebook more as a messenger service. I don't really post. I don't remember the last time I posted on Facebook. It might have been a few months ago, but when I want to message you, I just message you or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's like it reminds me of AOL Instant Messenger from back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's good for communicating, organizing things and messaging, but beyond that, I don't see a lot of utility.
Yeah.
And what?
Oh, yeah, no, yeah. Beyond that, I mean, I've learned far too much about a lot of people's opinions.
Yeah.
That I didn't want to know.
Hey, sit towards this side. By the way, there you go. Because then you're gonna the other way.
This?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, you mean towards the microphone?
Yeah. That way we can see you a little bit better since I've kind of cropped the screen a little bit here.
Oh, okay, yep. Sure.
So, yeah, I don't know. Facebook is it's problematic to me. I just, and I myself, I've gotten into trouble on it too. I've gotten into conversations I wish I hadn't gotten into, and I find it at best it's an exercise in patience. But at worst, it's just it's fodder for the worst of our personalities. It's a place where the worst of us comes together to kind of like discuss things in ways that we wouldn't do if we were sitting face to face with someone.
Well, I'll give you with one of the people you communicate on Facebook with. One of the problems with it is because it's a public conversation, whereas if you question someone's opinions on Facebook, they feel threatened
because they now have to defend it to the world.
They're not just defending it to you. This isn't just like me and you sitting down and talking, or like sitting down.
It's no longer a personal disagreement. Now it's an indictment.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that Reddit does not like. Reddit, because you're anonymous, doesn't feel like that at all. Like if someone disagrees with me, whatever. Like I don't know who you are. Nobody knows who I am. But if I'm a complete dick to everybody, like they will know my username and they won't like my username. So there is some like feedback loop there.
Right.
But it's not the same thing as me disagreeing with one of my friends and saying, "Hey, I think Trump's one of the worst presidents of all time," and they're like, "Well, he's my president. You just insulted me and I'm offended." And you're like, "Oh well, there we go. We're done. There's nothing to talk about." and that's why I think Facebook's a net negative at the end of the day, because because you want to have this like intimate discussions, these private discussions in a public forum, and that's just bad. That just doesn't work.
It's difficult, and that's why I say, at best it can be sometimes an exercise in tact, in grace, but that's when people are operating at their best, and that I feel some people have kind of gotten a good handle on that. I certainly haven't. There are times when I feel like I'm able to kind of manage that, but most of the time it's pretty difficult, and I think by no fault of the people, more by fault of, like you said, the environment, the platform. Yeah, yep. It makes it more difficult to be respectful.
All right, so. Last comment on Facebook. I want to ask you something. 10 years, where's Facebook?
Facebook, oh boy. It's growing and growing and growing, right? Facebook's already kind of crept its way into so many aspects of our lives. We use it to log into things. We use it to communicate with each other across multiple platforms. They've taken on Instagram. They'll probably take on some other platforms by then. They've only been around for 10 years practically. They've only been relevant for 10 years, and look how much has happened. I think a big change that we'll see is greater integration of advertising. I think Facebook is going to be a marketing and advertising machine, and the sole force of it will no longer be really to give us a positive user experience. It'll just become a place where advertisers can just market the hell out of us as effectively as possible.
I think it's gone.
Facebook? You think it's gone in 10 years?
At least in the current iteration, it will not exist like it does today.
No.
It will not be... I don't think it's a social media... it could be like this almost OS, if you will, for like logging onto the internet, sort of what AOL wanted to be. But, I don't use it at all.
They'll be around... But billions of people do, though, is the thing, and it'll be around until they're challenged, and they are presently not challenged by any other platform that can rival it.
I guess at the end of the day, what will be interesting to see is how do you fix Facebook, and not fix it. Not necessarily fix it, but replace it. Like what social media platform can offer what Facebook offers, but in a better way.
There's been some that have been talked about. There's one I read about the other day. I can't remember the name of it. Marmoset? Marmalade?
Marmoset?
What is this thing called?
I hope it's Marmoset.
Well, anyway, so there's been some people that have tried to start some more open platforms that kind of handle social interaction a little bit better. But...
I think
it's tough. People aren't going to be incentivized to leave Facebook and go to another platform unless they feel like Facebook is no longer a place where they can get what they want, which I'm assuming is like a safe environment, privacy, like connectivity.
That's it. No, that one.
Connectivity.
I feel like that's the only thing, and Facebook's actually openly admitted it that's the only thing that they want to offer, and they don't care. No, they don't want to make money, but connectivity is what they sell.
Yeah, it's all advertising, though. Man.
Well, I'm saying what they're selling is connectivity. The only reason people use it is to connect to their friends.
It's this balancing act. I work in advertising, and so I see how Facebook is kind of two businesses, and it's like the one that is like the public-facing business that's all about creating a good user experience, I guess, and then the other business, which is almost equally as large, if not larger, is all the stuff that goes behind the scenes about how to make Facebook an advertising platform. And so they're selling not just to the public, they're selling to businesses, they're selling to corporations, they're selling to marketers.
Well, they're selling you, right? That's the whole point.
Yeah, well, they're selling us as an audience to the people that want to make business off of us.
Yeah. Exactly. That's how they make money. That's the only way Facebook makes money.
Right. Oh, and they make a ton. They make a ton that way.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty wild. Yep. I don't know. I'm skeptical. You can ask my wife. I've had many a conversation. My skepticism towards social media, and my kind of cynicism towards it.
Well, and the biggest thing is, and this is part of the political climate, is people don't like change. People are inherently afraid of change, and fear is one of the things that our dominates the political climate, the political culture that we're going through right now.
Yeah.
I think that due to things like 9/11, the recession, everything that happens overseas even, I think that it's really become, I mean, it's not this, and this isn't new. It's not like this is the first time that fear has dominated the landscape of politics. But and we'll have links for all the kind of all the citations for everything. But there's a great article in the Scientific American talking about kind of how we can bridge that gap, but how fear kind of motivates primarily conservatives. Not to say it doesn't motivate everybody, but one of the great examples that they gave is that after 9/11, everybody, including liberals, became more conservative.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's just a natural reaction of humans is that when you're threatened, you tense up, you curl into a ball. I mean,
you close down, you create borders, and you protect. It's a protectionism. It's reactionary and it's protectionist. And on the other side, they did another study similar to that when they asked something like 8,000, is it 3,000 people, to pretend they had superpowers, and that were immune to any kind of injury. People, both conservative and liberal, became more liberal. So conservatism seems to be driven by kind of an unconscious sense of fear, and liberalism tends to be driven by an unconscious sense of safety. And, I think there's probably times where a conservative sense of fear is misplaced or exaggerated, and there's probably plenty of times, too, where a liberal sense of safety is exaggerated and misplaced.
Well, I think that and the article is great because it's really comes at it from a balanced perspective in the sense that, like, conservatives and liberals are both needed. Two sides of a coin. It's not that one... I might feel that one is better than the other.
And not even strictly because of the ideas behind both sides, but because people that tend to be conservative, the study found, are fundamentally different people than people that are liberal. So it's not even just about the ideas, it's even about the unconscious assumptions that people make and the way they respond to the world without even meaning to. It's their worldview. And so the fact of the matter is we have different types of people on this earth, and we need multiple types of people in order to respond effectively to the challenges that we have.
And I think that I 100% agree. And I mean, I think that that's one of the most important things that both sides can recognize is that we're both important. Conservatives are important to liberals, and liberals are important to conservatives. I mean, we're trying. We need to come together and stop pushing each other apart, and try to look at the issues, the issues, not from a what's different, what makes us different, but how can we come together on these? And I think I just added this to our little, not script, but the thing today it's kind of the Star Wars mentality, the black and white. Life is black and white. The light side versus the dark side.
Good and evil, and you better choose the right side. Yep.
And I mean, I love Star Wars, but that is a horrible mentality.
It's a horrible analogy for the way the real world works. Yeah, life can't be so easily split between good and evil. And
no.
that was one of my biggest takeaways from this article. It's really interesting. One of these researchers, Haidt, I don't remember his first name here, but he says he's not out to change people's deepest moral beliefs, yet he thinks that if people could see that those they disagree with are not immoral, but simply emphasizing different moral principles, some of the antagonism would subside. And so if you look deeply, if you look really carefully at conservative values and liberal values, you find that neither side is really immoral a lot of the time. It's just a different approach to ethical questions. When it comes to abortion, for example, one side is staunchly opposed to it, the other one really is promoting it, And both sides have ethical motivations for doing so. But they're just placing those ethical motivations in a different priority order than the other side. So
Well, and I mean, I feel like abortion's a great example. Like, I feel like if you look at it, nobody really wants abortions, right? If in an ideal world, abortions don't exist.
right.
That'd be great. But we get into this trap where we try to legislate our problems away. Oh, well, abortions shouldn't exist. We can all agree on this fact. It'd be nice if they didn't. So let's just make a law. They go away. That doesn't work.
And then people start to have abortions in really sketchy offices and have all kinds of serious health issues.
Like that, the principle of the matter is we can't legislate all of our problems away.
And you certainly can't legislate morality.
Exactly.
As much as one would like to.
I mean, I think that I had a few examples of how we try to legislate our problem: drugs, abortions. I mean, heck, we even tried it with alcohol and then gave up. I mean, prohibition was a great example of let's just get rid of alcohol altogether.
Yeah.
And they actually put it in the Constitution and then had to write another amendment to get rid of the original amendment.
Yeah, they went all in that first time. Yeah, I feel like we don't do that quite as much now.
But that idea, that just show. I mean, we didn't learn from that.
Yeah,
like
it's a good case study.
Yeah, it's a great example of what we've tried in the past, failed, given up, and then fixed it. And we should attack abortion and drugs a similar way.
Yep.
And I don't even know what they did to even try to mitigate alcohol, because I think that, like I said, abortions, it'd be nice if the world if they didn't exist. Okay, so how can we make that happen? Okay, well, why do people get abortions? Okay, well, it's because they have an unwanted pregnancy. Okay, so how do we stop people from getting unwanted pregnancies? Well, we teach them.
Well, you go into their home and force them not to have sex.
No, we should just teach them abstinence, because that's the only,
right.
No, knowledge is power. Teach them about their bodies.
And acknowledging the fact that humans are going to do what they're going to do, and you cannot make sex illegal. You just can't do it, and so people are going to have sex. They're just going to. Sorry. And so you better at least teach them how to do it safely. And if they choose not to do it, that's fine. If they choose to do it, well, that's their choice. But at least teach people how to do it safely. That's the least and the most you can do.
I mean, sex is awesome, right? I mean, and your body, since from the ages of 12 on, puberty tells you, hey, go have sex. Like, go reproduce. That's the whole point of every animal, every creature on this earth is to reproduce and make more of us.
Right.
You can't just be like, oh, well, we're just not going to tell you about it. No, your body's going to tell you about it. And then you're going to go
and then you're going to do something stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the ironic thing to me is the same people who don't want abortion so vehemently and they want to outlaw it are the same people who don't want to teach kids about their bodies because it will lead them to have sex.
And that's one of the problems I see a lot of times on the conservative kind of ideology is that the answer to our nation's problems is we need to turn to God. We need more morality. We need more, we need to be better to each other. And I agree with all those things. More morality would be nice. It would be really nice if we all had higher values and higher standards and really had a focus on the family. These are good things that I think would help the country. But how are you going to legislate that? You can't do anything to fix that. You can't just put a law in order that says that people are going to believe in a God that says they shouldn't have sex. You can't do that, even if you'd like to. And so you have to find other ways to create meaningful legislation that actually and maybe it's a Band-Aid, right? Maybe a piece of legislation is just a Band-Aid for a deeper underlying issue. But I'm actually sort of fine with that. Because I think as long as you can stem the bleeding, then you can get to work on the deeper problem in maybe some other way that doesn't require laws.
Well, I mean, I mean, I really think. I mean, abortion is just an example, but with abortion, for instance, I think that I mean, having a child when you're 14 years old is almost a death sentence to you. That's the reason girls freak out. I mean, so much for college, so much for a life.
Right.
I mean, you're going to be a single mom for the rest of your life. You're not going to be able to go to college to get an education or get a job.
Not to mention having that child at such a young age not only is a challenge to the mother, but also can be a serious challenge to the child growing up without the resources that it needs to have a productive and happy life.
I mean, exactly. So, but I feel like, again, sex education. We go back to that, but after sex education, we can start. Let's give them additional resources. So let's say it does happen. Well, why don't we offer people free childcare? Single mothers get free. Everyone gets. If you want, especially single mothers. If we want to start just there, single mothers get free childcare.
Make the make the adoption process simpler.
Make the adoption process simpler. I mean, yeah, I mean, I just had the foster. We got to fix foster care. I don't even know how to do it. But I mean, there's just too many stories about bad things happening. Yeah. But I mean, I think it's human. Yeah, that just goes back into human psychology, and trying to raise somebody else's kids is a hard thing to do.
And I think so. This discussion. It goes back to that point of different priorities of ethics, of morality, right? So when you kind of look into people's reasoning for wanting to legalize abortion in some cases, it's out of a sense of compassion for the life of the mother, out of a sense of compassion in some cases. Well, it's putting a different emphasis on compassion for one person over the fetus, right? And whereas the conservative viewpoint is putting compassion towards the fetus, towards the potential of life. And I think both sides of that are extremely valid. But it's just a matter of how do you implement that then, and which one is the most important case by case. And that's where it gets difficult to draw that line.
Well, I mean, that's why I think that, I mean, I'm pro-abortion in the sense that I think it should be legal. I don't think that mothers, I mean, like you said, when you outlaw it, people still do it. They just do it in a very unsavory, unsafe way.
Right.
I think you make it legal. I mean, I think there is a cutoff after a certain number of weeks that, all right, now no more abortions. But I think that, like I said, childcare, give people free childcare now it's not a death sentence. Now they can go get a job and take care of themselves, or go to school because their kids they're able to drop off the kid at the beginning of the day. But the whole point of this wasn't even to talk about abortion. It was just talk about these hot button issues: immigration, abortion, drugs. We don't need to come at them from such a black and white standpoint where we're just going to put a law. I feel like a law, it's like if somebody had an arm chopped off and we're putting a Band-Aid on it. That literally doesn't work. Like, that person will bleed out.
But you do have to put a bandage on it while you can fix the arm.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about this is putting a Band-Aid on when you would need a tourniquet.
Some serious help, yeah.
Yeah, we're not helping at all. We need to. There is some serious legislation that needs to come into play, and we need to attack the contributing factors to these issues, not the issue, not just ban it.
But I do feel like legislation is always going to be the best answer, though. The best answer that we have. It's the best tool we have available to us. But it's a matter of finding legislation that is moderate and finds a common ground between opposing ideologies. And you kind of said it when you were saying your position. I know this isn't all about abortion necessarily, but as this example, you said your position on abortion is that make it legal. We've seen what happens when you try to outlaw certain things. Make it legal, but stop at a certain point. After a certain number of weeks, it's no longer an option because now you're dealing with a seriously developed child. Mm-hmm. Where to draw that line obviously becomes complicated, but in any case, that's that middle ground there, right? And so, but when people aren't willing to see the other side of things, then we get liberals who think conservatives are just like, no abortion ever, 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 ever. And conservatives think liberals are just like, yes, abortion all the time for anyone ever. It's free and fun. Wee. And neither of those sides is really an accurate representation of, I think, what people really want. What people, so I think abortion is a sad, sad thing, and it shouldn't be a matter of rejoicing for anyone. However, I think there's times when it's perfectly reasonable and in some cases necessary. Preserving the life of the mother in cases of rape or incest. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that, like I said, I think the whole point of banning abortion is to lower the cases of abortion, right? Well, it's not working. So I know that mentally you think, well, it needs to be banned, but your ban is not functional. It's not doing your whole goal. It's not about banning. I mean, that's such a black and white mentality. Well, we need to ban it because that'll decrease it. Well, it's not decreasing it. So now let's look at other ways to decrease it. Okay, well, sex education automatically decreases it because you have less pregnancies. All right.
And that's a trend. That's actually been teen pregnancies have gone down in the last 10 years. Even since I was in high school, teens are having sex less now than they were when I was in high school, a decade ago.
I mean, are they having less sex or are they having more protected sex?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Less pregnancies, I should say. Less pregnancies, right? But
right. And that's the whole goal is to have less abortion. Not the goal was not to ban it. Like that, we're putting two things, the wrong ideas together. Like your goal shouldn't be to ban abortion. Your goal should be to stop abortions. Now let's talk about actually stopping them.
Right.
And that there's.
And then that's where you throw the legislation, not on the surface. And this is an interesting conversation. I'm going to spin this now because recent events, with the Parkland shooting, gun control is it comes in and out of the public eye, but it's been in media attention lately in the last couple of weeks. And this is actually something I've kind of recently changed my views on a little bit because I kind of felt like gun control. I was all for gun control. I think now I have a friend that puts it. He says he's not for gun control. He's for gun reform, and I kind of like that idea because I think there's plenty of reform that can be made to help out. But I no longer like the idea of controlling gun ownership and gun purchases in the sense of banning AR-15s or banning high capacity magazines. I'm kind of seeing it now in a similar way as we've been having in this discussion, which is those are band-aid fixes. Those don't necessarily go to the heart of the matter. And the data has shown that lower gun ownership does not correlate with lower gun violence. There's just no correlation there. And I don't know necessarily what the answer is. I still think there's things we should do in terms of gun reform. I still think that we should make consistent how we deal with gun purchases and gun sales from state to state. I think we should increase regulation on background checks, whereas in some states it's a serious background check, in other states it's just kind of like a self-reported thing. So like I promise I'm good, give me a gun.
Yeah, I didn't do anything wrong.
I think there's issues with that, right? But I also don't believe that we should, some people go as far as to say like mass disarmament. I think that's ludicrous, but I think it's also kind of silly to think that banning AR-15s is going to really change anything. I just don't think it will. Yeah, and that's something I've recently developed.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think that's the way is probably to look at why people feel like they need to buy. Like, for instance, like why does someone need to feel like they need to buy a gun? Mm-hmm. Like, why do you buy a gun? Is it to protect yourself? Well, that's because you're scared. You feel fear. What are you afraid of? And
afraid of mass shooters, afraid of terrorists, afraid of burglars. The list goes on. But that's a real fear people feel.
But it's like helping people to get over that and trying to address those problems rather than just be like, hey, no more guns, people. Hey, that's not going to work. I mean, I think we could all live in this wonderful world. I think everyone wants to live in the world where I could snap my fingers and guns don't exist.
Oh, that would be a dream. That'd be great.
Right. Yeah. Guns, missiles, and nukes, all that, just goodbye. But that's not possible. So you have to go about it a different way.
Right. Yeah. And it's there's still serious problems with the gun narrative on either side, and on the conservative side with the NRA kind of like meddling with things constantly, and with their propaganda telling people that they need to go buy AR-15s because it's the best way to protect yourself in like a a robbery situation or something. And it's like, okay, I guess. I mean, I don't really have any interest in purchasing an AR-15. I don't necessarily think they should be outlawed, but I also don't feel like I don't really quite buy the narrative delivered by the NRA, who in my opinion is just trying to make
Sell
money.
guns?
Yeah, they're just trying to sell guns. I mean, they have no other interest but that.
Well, it's like, no, it's exactly what you said. Like, I'm going to be honest, 99%, an AR-15 in most people's hands isn't going to protect them. Like, unless you are skilled with the weapon, you know how to point. I mean, you have practice shooting, but also you're used to, high pressure situations with guns, having guns pointed at you. Like, that is a whole different thing.
Right.
Than, I mean, if someone breaks into my house, how am I going to react? Like, why don't we talk about that? Why don't we work on helping people feel more comfortable in that? I mean, I think martial arts is going to be, your hand-to-hand combat's probably more effective anyway. I mean, if you're up close to somebody, a gun is useless. It's super hard to shoot somebody when they are 2 feet from you.
Yeah. Wrestling with you, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that helping people feel confident without a gun would be a more effective way of reducing gun ownership. Because guns are expensive. I mean, ammo and
but
just a
what's
gun all on its own.
and so for you though, what's the goal of reducing gun ownership?
I mean, it's just like I said, if you just snap your fingers and guns don't exist, I do think that fewer guns in the world is a better thing. I don't think, I mean, I'm not saying, there's no reason for somebody to have 10 guns. Why?
Yeah.
And you're a collector?
And I'm not a gun collector, right? But to play the devil's advocate, or in this case, to play the gun owner's advocate, I think it's because they like them. Because for multiple reasons. Because they feel like being trained with firearms is going to help them in a dangerous situation. Because they just enjoy it as a pastime.
Sure.
And I think, if somebody wants to have 10 guns, then okay.
Oh, no, this isn't about blocking them from having
Sure.
that. I'm just saying helping them feel confident and safe without a gun.
Mm.
Because if you feel confident and safe without a gun, then then you will only have the hobbyists who have lots of guns. I mean, I'm not saying I don't know everyone's reason for purchasing weapons, but I feel like again, like you said, the NRA is a bit dishonest about the whole situation because they are financially motivated to tell you buy guns. Yes, guns will protect you, guns will save you, and that's not really true. It's only partially true if you have all the training necessary and and you react positively in high pressure situations.
And I think that's people's vision of America, though. Honestly, I think if you ask a lot of gun owners and conservatives, I think that they would say that, well, yes, you're exactly right. That is exactly what we want. They would say we want an America where everyone has a gun, where everyone feels confident with a gun and is able to use a gun and can protect themselves when necessary. I think that's kind of the attitude, the mentality. And I mean, it doesn't sound particularly appealing to me personally, but I actually but I can see the value in that. I mean, it comes from a long history of Americans being independent and fighting off our government, when we became independent. And it's...
You mean back in...
back to... but the thing is, but that tradition has been passed down, It's like...
I feel like it's I feel like it's a myth.
I feel like it's a little logically flawed today. I mean, I personally don't fear that our government is going to come against us. Maybe they will. I don't know. I'm not personally afraid of that. And even if they did, I feel like we don't even have near the firepower available to us to stop them. Yeah. And even if we were allowed to have that kind of firepower, we don't have enough money to buy it. The government's got all the money and all the firepower, and so we don't have an army that is like a royal army. The Army is United States citizens. So I have a hard time envisioning a future where the United States government turns on us, because that would essentially mean our own citizens turning on us. It would be a civil war, not a war of tyranny.
Yeah, I mean, every state has their own National Guard.
Right. And the
And
United States military is comprised of citizens.
yeah, but that's true of everything, though. Technically, all
Well, yeah.
armies are made up of citizens.
Sure.
But I do feel like I agree with you that I think that if worse came to worse, I think that a lot of the soldiers would be on the side of freedom rather than tyranny. But then again, I mean, that's a whole different discussion. That's a whole different what is tyranny? For instance, I mean, if you're the tyrannical side, do you feel tyrannical? I'm not. I just think that. I mean, look at Nazi Germany, for instance. I mean, I'm surely most of them thought they were doing bad things, but they did them anyway.
Right. Yeah. I think there was a select few, who you could say are objectively evil, that were just horrible, rotten people. And then there's a whole lot of people that kind of get sucked into that scheme,
Mob mentality.
Mob mentality. Yeah. Well, especially when you feel like you're being offered something in return.
Well, especially when you're being threatened.
That too.
I mean, not just you, but your family. And
yeah.
So on and so forth.
And so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously there is a historical precedent for governments turning on their people. That's beyond debate. And will it happen in the United States eventually? I think, okay, yes, it could. Absolutely it could. No questioning that. However, I'm not really afraid of it, because I don't see there being a lot that we could really do about it. I mean, I guess all we could do is try to prevent it from becoming a tyranny in the first place. But
I think, I think you're far better off spending your time being active in your government than you are buying a gun.
Yeah, being a force for good rather than just bracing yourself and bunkering down for the moment when the government comes to your door and tries to break into your house or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I mean, look at Gandhi, look at Nelson Mandela. Like, one man as an influencer, or Martin Luther King Jr., one man as an influencer is so much more powerful than one man with a gun.
Yep.
And I mean, heck, that's kind of the reason, part of the reason we want to do the podcast. I mean, that's one of my motivations, is just I want to be a force for good in this world. I want to be a force for change and a force for, moving forward in this world, and openly talking about subjects and getting over this political bubble where, like you were talking about, the echo chamber where we only listen to ourselves.
Stagnation.
Yeah, I've told you, I'm more of a lurker on Reddit than a contributor. So I want to not be that. I want to be a contributor. I want to help in any way I can. And
I think ideas are what will do it. I mean, I'm a big believer in ideas. I think ideas shape our behavior, and our behavior will shape the course of history. It all starts with what we believe. And I think the more we just believe, the more we only give credence to what we already believe and ignore everything else, that's the quickest way to turmoil. So I think, just opening up the debate in the United States for an open dialogue where we can share ideas, where we can not vilify other people for having different ideas. I think there's a certain sense of arrogance in assuming that your ideas are the correct way. And that's a lot of, going back to what we started talking about at the beginning with the Parkland shooting and the teenagers protesting, I think I see a lot of that arrogance on older people that assume just because they have a certain amount of life experience, which is, they do, but because of that, they are inherently more right than those young people. And I think that's a mistake. I think everybody should approach everything from a position of, I'm probably wrong, but I'm going to try to learn, rather than I'm definitely right and I don't need to learn anything new.
Well, that's just...
That's folly. That's folly.
The last thing... Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
And I think... I mean... I wish that people... at first brush, people need to... Your first reaction to a situation should be compassion.
Yeah.
Come at it from compassion, and then and then dive into more. I mean, like for instance, like mass murderers. Like your first inclination is, kill this person or arrest this person or whatever. I mean, our prison system is all about punishment.
Yeah.
But shouldn't it be about reform?
Right.
Like if I'm not saying everybody's redeemable. There's plenty of sane people who've done horrible things, and yeah, we're done. Yeah, let's be done with that person. But I mean, the fact that you catch someone smoking marijuana and you just want to lock them up in jail for 5 years and ruin their life because now they have a felony on their record and they can't ever hold a job or vote again, like
just because they got high.
Man, we're going backwards. Like you have just that
it's a bizarre kind of legalism that's frightening. It's
like your first reaction to someone's actions should not be damn,
lock them up. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It should be what? Why are you doing this? Wow.
I think and I think it comes from like those quick reactions. It comes from people who, I talked about assuming rightness, but I think it goes beyond that. It comes from people assuming moralness. And I think there's too many people in life that not only assume they're right, they assume they're right because they assume they're good. And that the other people who they think are wrong because they're bad. And I think that dualistic view of the world is so dangerous, assuming that... I mean, honestly, I feel like the number of people in this world that are just genuinely, inherently evil, they're out there, but they are few and far between. I mean,
they're called sociopaths.
Yeah,
psychopaths.
I just don't think there's a whole lot of people, like, realistically, all over the place that are just bad people with bad morals. I think it's just different ideologies. And again, there are people out there that are baseless and have no morals and are sick people. They're out there. But they are, I mean, you're hard pressed to really find them day to day. But most of the people you deal with on a regular most of the people you deal with on a regular basis also have values, also have beliefs and morals. They just might place those things in a different way than you do. And so this idea, this arrogance of assuming that I'm right because I'm moral and good and they're wrong because they're immoral and bad is just so just, it's crazy to me.
Well, I mean, the thing is, you see it throughout culture.
Mm-hmm.
Like racism, sexism, like nationalism. Like you're creating a moral superiority, and that superiority is always your own. I'm white, so I'm better than everybody else. No. I'm American, so I'm better than everybody else. No. I'm male, so I'm better. Like that. You're like you said, you're creating this moral superiority, even if it's not as pronounced in your brain, but just in your actions that you like in the way that you think. I mean, at this point, I don't even know how I can. It's hard for me to put myself in the shoes of someone who thinks white people are better than everybody else, or
right, or even a big one in the United States is even I'm Christian, so I'm better than everyone else. It's a big one. It's a huge one.
Oh, it's huge. Well, then it's not just Christians. Muslims feel the same way.
Right. I mean, that's what ultimately leads to extremism.
And then so do Asians feel the same way
mm-hmm.
about over in Asia, that they feel the same way, and they denigrate other races. And we're all humans at the end of the day.
Yep.
Like, we all want the same thing. We all want happiness. We all want to feel safe. We all want to have families and grow up and watch our kids get bigger and smarter and learn new things. We all want these things.
Yeah.
Like, that it doesn't matter what your political views are, what your skin color is, like.
Right. Yeah. No, and when I think about the notion that one of, like, that Emma Gonzalez, for example, it is doing what she's doing because she wants to create like a tyrannical U.S. government and strip away everybody's rights, and she's like a socialist or communist or something like that. I'm just like, really? Wow. This teenage girl, that's what she wants? She doesn't want to just like feel safe and happy and live a productive life and make the world a better place?
No, she's on the take, man.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, she's definitely evil.
Get with the program.
She's definitely evil.
She's getting paid by the
And so,
Democrats.
I just feel like, I've had people call me naive because I believe in people, but I'm not going to stop believing in people. I don't necessarily think that humans are innately good or bad. I kind of have a blank slate mentality. I think we're a product of our nature and our nurture. But I think humans have a tremendous capacity for good, and I think there is something to be said about our biological desire for prosperity. That is hardwired in us, is prosperity. Everybody's seeking happiness, in their own way,
Yeah.
what they feel like is happiness, and so
Absolutely.
yeah, and so I think it's time to believe in people. I think it's time to give people the benefit of the doubt. It's time to listen to people's ideas without prejudging their morality or their motivations for doing so or for believing what they believe, but coming to them on their terms.
Well, like you said, I mean, if you're going to prejudge, it should be generous.
Yeah.
Assume they want the best.
Right.
However they want to get there, that the motivation behind that is positive.
And if you do that, you might still disagree with something, and that's fine, but at least you'll do it based on their argument and not based on their character. And you might come away with it with some new knowledge, with a more refined point of view.
The moment you stop learning from other people is the moment, I mean, you're in trouble.
Yeah. The moment you close yourself off and don't embrace diversity, and not for diversity's sake, as some people say, right? But for the purpose of increasing knowledge, increasing compassion, increasing empathy, and increasing wisdom, having a broader worldview.
I mean, there are talented people of every walk of life, every credo, every religion, and there are great people, funny. I mean, and everyone's. I mean, doing things for diversity's sake is only because it just adds more spice to life, man. I mean, I enjoy salt and pepper on my chicken, but I like some cumin and some oregano too.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that, but even on a grander, much more majestic scale, where it's knowledge and learning and just everyone coming. It's just that. If I have one problem with conservatives, is that it feels like they're pushing against it out of fear, because they're going to be replaced by immigration or replaced by whatever. And I just want them to know that we're all humans, man. We're all here to I feel like they're kind of their fiscal policies, where it's anti-socialism. They kind of magnify each other, right? So conservatives don't want to support social policies that redistribute wealth, where we're taking Medicare, Medicaid, all that kind of thing, welfare, and they'd rather just wall the country off and keep all immigrants out, and then we build from within. Well, I'd rather include everybody, and let's work on taking care of you if you lose your job because of X, Y, or Z, and let's work together. Everyone just come together at the end of the day. I think that's I know that should be the message. Let's work together as a world, not just as a one person or two people or once, whatever.
And it's a good takeaway. It's a good takeaway from this conversation. And we are a little over an hour now, so if you've watched this entire thing, well, congratulations to you, because we're not sure where this is going quite yet. It's in the ether now, and it's out there. If you've listened up to this point or watched up to this point, we're curious to know what you think. What do you see as the challenges in the political climate today? Is there a need for more moderation? And at what point does moderation become a stagnation of its own? And at what point do you draw the line and say, no, well, I do need to stand for certain beliefs? It's a difficult topic. We're interested to hear your thoughts. Is there a place for nationalism in today's world? And how does that fit into a global society? These are all really interesting questions. So, I don't know.
Yep. And you can catch us on, we'll be on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Twitch, and hit us up on any of those. Well, I guess we'll probably have to be on Twitter eventually. But yeah, hit us up and let us know what you think, and I guess we'll do this again next week.
All right, it's been good. Peace out.
And that's
Too much to say.
too
much to say.
Too much to say. That's the truth, man. That's a title just for that reason.
All right. Thanks for joining us if you joined us, and we'll hope to see you next time.